Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the explosive start of one of history's most legendary conflicts. And you know what? This story doesn't kick off with a huge battle, but with a really simple and honestly pretty chilling demand.
All right, so let's get right into this with a key concept, earth and water. Now, for the gigantic Persian Empire, this was a huge deal. This wasn't them just asking for a bit of tax money. No, this was their way of demanding your total, unconditional surrender. If you offered them earth and water, you were basically saying, okay, it's all yours. Our land, our people, our very lives. We belong to you now.
So just try to picture this. You're in charge of a small Greek city-state, and suddenly, messengers from the biggest superpower on the planet show up with that demand. I mean, what do? Most cities, probably smartly, just caved. They complied. But of course, two legendary cities, Athens and Sparta, had, well, let's just say, they had other plans.
And this is where you really see the personalities of these two powers just come shining through. Sparta's response? It's exactly what you'd expect. Blunt, brutal, straight to the point. They literally threw the messengers into a well, saying, you want earth and water? There's plenty down there. Athens, on the other hand, had to be, well, Athens about it. They turned the whole thing into this bizarre legal spectacle. They held a full public trial, found the messengers guilty, and then threw them off a cliff. So, two very different approaches, but the same brutal message.
But here's the thing you gotta understand. This dramatic rejection, this was the final straw, not the first offense. King Darius was already furious with the Greeks. So to really get why this one act of defiance tipped the whole world into war, we have to rewind a few years. So let's go to a region called Ionia, on the coast of modern-day Turkey. This is where the whole grudge really gets started. Ionia was this fascinating and really conflicted place. You could say it had an Asian address, but a Greek soul. It was ridiculously wealthy from trade, a hotbed of culture and new ideas, and it was caught right in the middle, smack between the Persian Empire to the east and the Greek world to the west. It was basically a powder keg, just waiting for a spark.
So our story zooms in on the powerful city of Miletus and its leader, a guy named Histiaeus. He was a super savvy politician, and he got along really well with his boss, the Persian king Darius. A little too well, in fact. Darius started to get suspicious of just how clever and powerful this guy was.
So Darius gives him a promotion that he just can't refuse. He summoned the Persian capital Susa to be the king's special advisor, but really, it was a golden cage. A very lavish form of house arrest, designed to keep this clever Ionian far, far away from his power base. Now, with our savvy politicians sidelined, Darius appoints his nephew and son-in-law, a man named Aristagoras, to rule Miletus. And this is where everything goes spectacularly wrong. You see, this new guy, Aristagoras, was ambitious and impulsive, but he wasn't very bright. He saw a chance to make a name for himself when some exiles from the super-wealthy island of Naxos came asking for help. He thought, aha, this is my shot at glory.
And his path to ruin is almost comical. First, he pitches the Persians on this great idea to conquer Naxos. Then, he promises to personally pay for the entire Persian fleet, but then he gets into a huge fight with the Persian commander, the one guy he needs, and insults him. So what does the angry commander do? He secretly warns Naxos that the invasion is coming. The whole thing fails, miserably. So all of a sudden, our wannabe conqueror is facing two massive problems. A huge debt that he can't possibly pay, and the wrath of a very, very angry King Darius. He was completely and utterly cornered.
Just when things couldn't get any worse for him, a message arrives from his uncle, still trapped in that golden cage back in Susa, and the message was a simple one-word plan: revolt.
And this is the real kicker. Seeing a way out, Aristagoras completely rebrands himself. He goes from being a failed lackey for Persia to a champion of freedom against Persian tyranny. So remember this. This legendary revolt wasn't born from some noble desire for democracy. It was started by a fool who was just trying to save his own skin.
And you know what? Unbelievably, it worked. He managed to rally the other Ionian cities, and together they put together a fleet of 350 warships. And their early success was pretty stunning. I mean, at their high point,
the rebels march inland, and they actually capture Sardis, a major Persian capital. While they're looting the place, they accidentally burn the entire city to the ground. And here's the crucial detail. Athens, from way over in mainland Greece, sent 20 ships to help. Just 20. But that seemingly small act would have catastrophic consequences. So when news gets back to King Darius that one of his great cities was burned to the ground with help from these outsiders from Athens, he was incandescent with rage. This was no longer just some local rebellion. This was personal. The Persian response was swift, and it was overwhelming. They sent a counterattack fleet of 600 warships. That's almost double what the rebels had. They were not messing around. The Ionian Revolt was brutally, systematically crushed. The rebels were no match for the professional Persian war machine, and Miletus, the city where it all began, was completely wiped off the map as a terrifying lesson to anyone else who might dare to defy the king. But for Darius, just crushing the revolt wasn't enough. He became obsessed with Athens' betrayal. So obsessed, in fact, that he had a servant whose only job was to say to him 3 times at every meal, "Master, remember the Athenians." He was never, ever going to forget. And that brings us full circle. You see, the demand for earth and water wasn't just some random power play years later. It was personal. It was Darius's test, fueled by this burning grudge. And by killing his messengers, Athens and Sparta didn't just reject his authority, they gave him the perfect excuse to launch the invasion he'd been dreaming about for years. So, the next time you hear about the legendary Greco-Persian Wars, remember the bizarre and very human story of how it all got started. And it leaves us with one last question to think about. Was this epic clash of civilizations inevitable? Or was it all just a historical accident set off by one cornered fool trying to get out of debt?